Thank you. It was August 6th, 2002. I stepped off a plane at Heathrow Airport in London. The first step off that plane signaled the achievement of one of my longest held and most dear dreams. I had moved to Europe. Ever since I was a teenager, I'd wanted to live in Europe. The history and beauty of it all had mesmerized me for more than 15 years. And finally, on August 6th, 2002, I was able to call Europe home. I was ecstatic. I was thrilled at the adventure that lay ahead of me. This life's dream had become a reality. Yet within only a few months of arriving, I had become deeply fearful of interacting with others. I was struggling to convince myself to leave my flat in southwest London. My wife and I were living in a lovely corner of London, just a short walk from Wimbledon tennis courts. Yet I had struggled to find meaningful employment, and my self-esteem had taken a massive hit. It got really bad. At the worst of it, I was standing in the living room of our apartment, talking with my wife about it. And I remember my argument as to what my new approach would be. Why do I ever have to leave the flat? I could just work from home. People could email me work, and I could stay home. If I ever wanted to see people, I could just look out the window as they walk by. Yes, it got that bad. And yet here I am today, in front of you, a room filled with people, many of whom I don't know. And I am boldly sharing my thoughts and ideas on how to overcome the fear of public interaction, the fear of failure, and all the self-doubt that comes with it. How did that happen? How did I learn to be outgoing on command? How did I learn to be able to communicate with people I don't know when I want to or when I need to? The simple answer is that through a series of observations, decisions, and tactics, I've developed a method that helps me overcome my self-doubt and engage with people in public. And over the years, I've spoken with countless people about this, mostly informally, often at the WordPress Meetup that I've run for almost 4 years, with friends, family, colleagues at work. I know my approach has worked for me, it's helped others, and I'm confident that it could help you as well. So today I'm going to share with you 7 observations, 5 decisions, and 13 tactics. Maybe every detail that I share today won't be of value to you. Yet somewhere in the course of the next 30 minutes or so, I'm confident that you'll hear something that resonates with you, that strikes a chord, and gives you what you need to make progress in your own efforts to be outgoing on command. Wrong way. So what do I mean by outgoing on command? What's the context for that? Outgoing on command is all about overcoming our own fears and uncertainty to connect with people. It's about creating a mechanism through which we enable ourselves to interact with others in a way that will bring us joy, satisfaction, and happiness. It's a way to prepare for the daily interactions of life, to be brave enough to step outside of our home and face the world. What I'll talk about today applies to networking, to public speaking, chatting with new or existing clients, or even just meeting new people, inside or outside the workplace. I'll use these words and phrases interchangeably, so you should feel free to hear whatever word makes the most sense to you. Make the messages that I'm sharing your own. So let me start with some observations. And I need to be clear here. These observations that I share are the result of an increasingly self-reflective life. They're not the result of a single brainstorming session or meditation. They're rather the culmination of about 20 years of me developing an increased sense of self-awareness and a deepening desire to improve myself in every possible way. Moreover, the observations that I'm going to offer this afternoon are those which I think are the most important to my approach for being outgoing on command, the most valuable, the most fundamental to developing your own robust outgoing on command skills. There are certainly other observations which have contributed to the decisions and the tactics that I've made over these years, but these ones today are the most pivotal. Most of my observations won't be new to you. I certainly didn't think them up. Some are very personal to me, but I think that you'll be able to relate to them as well. Anything worth doing takes considerable effort. While I do consider myself a reasonably intelligent and capable person, I'm far from gifted at anything. The success that I've achieved in my life has taken a lot of work. The important goals, the big challenges, those were never solved easily. That was more than likely to hold true as I worked to become more comfortable with myself in public. The downside of having to hold the mic and work the mouse and get a drink is I run out of hands. It's who you know that opens doors. I graduated from a top 25 university in the US, and I graduated in 3 years. Yet when I went to apply for jobs in London, I discovered that almost no one had heard of my alma mater. No, it wasn't Harvard or Yale, but it was top 25, and I graduated in 3 years. Yet, because no one had heard of my school, no one had heard of its name, my professional credentials didn't speak for themselves. There was no connection with my college, and there was therefore no interest in what I knew. They didn't know me, and they didn't know my college. And here's a counterexample I want to share of how knowing someone opens those doors. Before I finally landed a job in London, I spent an afternoon sightseeing. I think my wife kicked me out of the house and said, "You have to leave. You don't have to talk to anybody necessarily, but you must leave." And in this afternoon of sightseeing, I stumbled upon a very big, impressive church. And I liked the architecture, so I went inside. And once I got inside, I realized it was a Catholic church. So I'm a Catholic, so I took the opportunity to go to confession. And while I was in the penalty box, I explained to the priest that I was struggling to find a job. He asked me what I did. I said I was a designer. He offered to put me in touch with an organization that could use my help. And that introduction turned into my biggest client ever. It enabled me to build websites, design museum exhibitions, produce amazing events, travel to Africa, be invited to events at the Houses of Parliament, and more. And it all started because that priest opened a little door for me. Networking and public speaking are hugely valuable skills. In the more than 20 years of my professional life, I have seen how personally and professionally valuable it is to be able to chat comfortably with strangers. Especially in the workplace, networking is how doors are opened and opportunities fall into our lap. On a personal level, meeting new people and getting to know them is how we build our support networks. My next observations are more introspective and a bit more personal. I'm hugely valuable. My existence as a human being makes me invaluable, regardless of my knowledge, experience, or skill set. The mere fact that I exist means that I have value. I am worthwhile. It's up to me to build my own instrumental value, but at the very least, I have a deep, intrinsic value. If that's not something you've heard before, the concept is new to you, it might sound a little jarring, but that's okay. Think about it. Ponder it. See if you agree. I've worked hard to follow my dreams. And this observation is really twofold. First, I appreciated that I've worked hard. While my background is one of real privilege, I've worked hard to build myself from that platform. Hard work does not scare me. Quite the opposite. It spurs me on. Hard work towards a desirable goal is something I enjoy. Secondly, I have dreams. I have dreams. There are real goals and visions of success that I want to make a reality. I really wanted to be comfortable speaking to new people. The more I thought about it, the more I came to appreciate that I didn't enjoy struggling with meeting new people. Being an anxious wallflower in a public setting was tough. Those monsters of self-doubt made for hours of discomfort. Becoming more relaxed and more at peace with myself in public was something that I really wanted. People are amazing. People are like books. Never judge a book by its cover. In more times than I can count, I've been astounded by the experiences, stories, and challenges that someone who I had just met had shared with me. If I hadn't overcome my inability to chat with those people, I would never have known their stories. So those are the micro observations that were the start of what led me to make a series of important decisions. Most of the decisions build on each other. And just like my observations, these decisions didn't all happen at once, nor did they always come to me clearly and coherently. They took time to develop, to germinate, and grow. I can be outgoing. It's just like I'll learn to write code, or I'll start my own business. The human mind is a powerful tool, and I decided that I could choose to become better at speaking in public. At times I thought of the decision as being no different than, I'll eat that apple, or I'll go for a walk. And so I decided to overcome my fear of meeting new people. Excuse me. Admit my fear and learn to overcome it. Flowing from the decision to be more outgoing in public, I had to acknowledge that I was actually afraid. I was worried that I wasn't good enough, that I wouldn't measure up, and that I had nothing of value to add, or not enough of value to add. Yet given my observations about my own self-worth, I am human. I was able to admit to myself I was afraid, and I decided to figure out a way to overcome it. I decided to move beyond the fear that had paralyzed me. In order to connect, I need to share. Sharing can be hard. It would open me up. It would make me vulnerable. Yet if I wanted to connect with people, to build relationships, I would need to tell them about myself. I would need to share my thoughts, my opinions, and my experiences. Yes, sharing would potentially expose me to ridicule, but it's the only way to get better at meeting and connecting with people. I decided to accept my vulnerability and share of myself. Now, if outgoing on command were a martial art, and it's not, but if it were, being vulnerable in public, say that 5 times fast, would be one of the more advanced techniques. I hadn't really considered vulnerability until 2012, when my son was diagnosed with sensory processing challenges. The turmoil of figuring that out, of learning to adapt to it and support my son and my family was a huge challenge. For me, for my wife, for my daughter, and of course for my son. That difficult process, which lasted more than a year, and which in many ways is ongoing, included a hugely powerful retreat weekend for me at my parish. Through that learning process and through that retreat, my eyes were open to the value of sharing with others at a deeper level. That which pains me also pains others. That which overwhelms me also overwhelms others. There is an avenue of deep human connection through shared pain. And conversely, there's an avenue of deep human connection through shared joy. So that's pretty much a fake it till you make it mantra. To work on getting better at public speaking and at networking, I had to want to enjoy it. By telling myself over and over that I do enjoy meeting new people. Over time, I came to believe that. And I can honestly tell you that I really do enjoy it now. I love networking. I'm thrilled to be standing here in front of you today. And I love meeting new people. Success at difficult tasks requires planning. Did I skip a slide? but I did skip some notes on this slide. So success at difficult tasks requires planning. Is I realized that if I'm going to get better at speaking in public, if I'm going to become more comfortable talking to people I don't know, I needed a plan. And so I pulled out pen and paper, and I began to write a plan. And then I typed it up, and I saved it on the computer, and I edited it, and I reviewed it, and I amended it, and then I began to implement it. And even today, I still, once a year, pull out my plan, review it, and edit it, typically around Christmas or New Year, and work it into my New Year's resolutions. So those are my big decisions. Those are the key choices about those key choices are what drove me to break out of that shell. They continue to push me forward today. What about tactics? How did I convert? How do I continue to convert those observations and decisions into something actionable? What did I do that worked? What shape did my plan take? Anchor myself. If I'm going to go out in the big bad world, I needed to have a support network. A grounding that would protect me when I needed protecting, that would pick me up and dust me off when I had been knocked down, or maybe just hold me quietly when I needed that. My strongest anchors are these, in this order: God, my wife, and now our 2 children. And beyond that, I have a small group of close friends who I know will always have my back. But they also know and love me enough to honestly and supportively remind me of my faults and shortcomings. This tactic, anchoring yourself, is the biggest and most important of them all. If we can properly anchor ourselves, we'll go a long way to building the confidence that we need to interact with others in public. Slipping into practical steps, I had to write the strategy. I had to start with that pen and paper. I had to actually write it down. So I typed out the strategy, I mentioned this earlier, and I began to implement. And I review and update it every year. I had to do the homework. Networking and the confidence to speak to people whom we want to meet requires preparation. Before you're in a position to bump into that designer, do some homework on him. What's he working on? What has he talked about on Twitter? Where is he working? What are his hobbies? Knowing his recent successes and what matters to him will give you great material to talk or ask about. Set event-specific goals. This is really important. I like quick wins. I like the momentum I get when I set short, realistic, and achievable goals. For me, I set goals at every opportunity. Tonight, when I go to a meetup, I will introduce myself to 2 people, and I will find something interesting about both of them. Or maybe my goal this weekend is to meet 4 specific people at this WordCamp who have amazed me on Twitter. Be specific. Sorry, I need another drink. Following up with new contacts. Relationships take time to develop. If we've been bold enough in the first place to make that connection, introducing ourselves to someone new, then by all means go the next step. Follow up with a tweet, an email, a LinkedIn connection, an invite to coffee, anything really. The idea is to remind the person who you are and what context that you met. That way, the next time you bump into them, that initial conversation won't be so scary. Rely on your anchor. Keeping up our confidence can be tough. There are all sorts of factors that can ding our self-belief. Remember to turn to your support network for help. Tell your other half what's worrying you. Ask your friend to call you the night before to help you calm down, and the night before your talk, to help you calm down and get a good night's sleep. Make a point to meet for coffee with a trusted colleague before you arrive at that WordCamp. When I need it, I turn to my wife and children for support. I spoke to them this morning. They encourage me and boost me up. And for me, an extra prayer or 2 doesn't hurt. Leaving the house is very hard. It's really the hardest step for me. You know, even yesterday, I have to be honest, when I was starting to head out here, coming from Chester County, just one county over, started asking myself, do I really want to go? I bet they have some backup speakers. I could just say there was too much snow. They'd understand, right? But once I actually climb into the car, close the door, put the seatbelt on, I feel better. I've committed to going. I've taken a physical step, and the rest will be easy. Now what? As you head towards that meeting, or wherever it is you're going, spend some time mentally working through these next steps. Remember your observations. You are valuable. You're a wonderful creature and you have incredible contributions to share with your community and with the world. Believe in yourself. You work hard and you have dreams. Those dreams will be a reality when you work hard to make them so. Your dreams and your work to achieve those dreams will give you a big boost. Separate who you are from what you do. Be who you are. You may be a freelance developer, but that's not who you are. You may love your job as a front-end designer, but that's not who you are. You're a boyfriend, you're a wife, and a sister. Yet those are not who you are either. They all feed into who you are, for sure. But you are much bigger and more complete than any one aspect of your life. Did that just die? No, it's back. You're more complete than any one aspect of your life. Knowing who you are will help reinforce your self-confidence and will reduce your fear of, I know so little code, or I just got into web design. What you do at work pales in comparison to who you are. Be who you are. So we've made it out of the house. We got into the car, onto the train. Yes. We rightly feel exhilarated by our success in getting out of the house, and our confidence is increasing. When we finally arrive at the WordCamp, we're excited to step up to the registration table. But then panic. We find ourselves in a hallway, and that developer that we wanted to talk is walking right towards us. She might have seen us. She looked friendly. Can we just melt into the wall? How can we deal with that immediate situation when it presents itself? We can't hide. We can't melt into walls. What can we do? I know it's cliche. Having an elevator speech is so cliche, right? But let me ask you this. Have you ever introduced yourself to somebody new, and then after that awkward conversation found yourself in the bathroom saying, what did I just say? Did I really use that word to describe myself? I never use that word. Yeah, I've done that a lot. This keeps going off and on, so maybe I'll just set it down. Can you hear me back there? Okay. Now it works again, right? So after you've had that conversation with yourself in the mirror, embarrassed by the way you described yourself, think about how you would want to have described yourself. Work it out. Write it down. Develop that elevator speech. Get it right. And then practice it and memorize it. Not verbatim, not so you sound out like a robot, but so that it comes across natural and convincing. Have an elevator speech. Have questions and ask them. So if you've done your homework, you're going to have questions that you want to ask the marketing professional. You'll have thoughts to share with that developer. You'll have ideas to run past that designer. In your plan, you set down those questions that you wanted to ask. Now you have to ask them. But what about people that we just meet? We don't know anything about them. We haven't done homework on them. We don't have any pre-written questions that we can turn to. Well, we need to have a few off-the-shelf questions that we can just go to, or go-to off-the-shelf questions. What brings you here today? What keeps you busy when you're on the clock? Tell me something about yourself that I should know. You can even use a shared experience of listening to a talk as a way to start to chat. Wow, Liam's presentation was so awesome. What did you think of it? Hey, thanks for asking that question. I was wondering that same thing. What did you think of her answer? Those of you who know me would probably agree that I'm a pretty quirky guy, weird even. I embrace that, and my off-the-shelf questions reflect that. But that's okay. That's me, being comfortable, being me. You need to work on you, being comfortable, you. By having some generic questions that we can rely on, we don't need to fall back on the, so, what do you do? We can take a more personal and engaged approach. Talk about non-work interests and activities. Work is the default language of networking. For those not feeling overly confident about their professional skills, networking can be a daunting task. Let's make it easier for them and for ourselves by talking about outside of the office activities and interests. What keeps you busy when you're not on the clock? What kind of music do you listen to? It's really anything to take away the focus from what you do and shine it onto who you are. Getting to the point where we are outgoing on command is not a short process. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And just like it'll take a lot of time and effort, and just like our marathon training efforts, we will begin to see progress sooner rather than later if we train consistently. That first 1 mile run, getting to a 10-minute mile pace, our first 5K. We'll experience these as we work to progress our outgoing on command powers. A rewarding conversation with that developer we saw in the hallway. The opportunity to deliver a technical talk at a local WordPress meetup. A friendly conversation we had with the owner of the agency where we want to work. Yet trying to rush to the top of the mountain or to finish that marathon on our first training run won't end well. So too with building confidence to connect with others. We have to baby step it. The way forward is steady progress. The pace of that progress is much less important than the fact that we are working hard toward the goal and making some progress. Progress is the measure. Pace is not important. Of course, we need to check our heads here. I think we can all agree that self-confidence is cyclical. Certainly is for me. We all have our ups and our downs. Even the most accomplished athletes question themselves from time to time. The very same is true of all of us. We're all human. To help protect ourselves from the roller coaster of self-confidence, we need to be able to recognize when we're down. And equally important, we need to know what steps we can take, perhaps with the help from our anchors, to get out of that self-doubt funk. For me, my quickest fix is a run. Indoor or outdoor, 3 to 4 miles, headphones on, music pounding. It doesn't always completely restore my confidence, but it gets me back to a healthy place. I've got a better perspective, and I can work on getting positive again. Be sure you know what works for you. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what about WordPress? Didn't his talk's description specifically mention with support from the WordPress community? Well, I just chucked that in to get the talk approved. Just kidding. Just kidding. My approach to self-confidence in public really began before I knew about WordPress. When I started to explore the WordPress community back in 2010, I found that it really is a different sort of community. It is hugely welcoming. It is openly supportive. And by and large, it lacks the overwhelming egos that can make jumping off the cliff of networking such a daunting task. So take advantage of this warmth. Take a risk with the kind people here today. Open up and be vulnerable in front of them. You won't be sorry that you did. My name's Liam Dempsey. I'm a designer and a marketing consultant. My company, LB Design, works with clients in the US, the UK, and beyond. Thank you very much.